NATO is in midst of an existential crisis. And believe it or not, NATO's biggest crisis is neither the Russian threat nor the growing tensions in Europe. No, NATO's biggest crisis has come from a country that is supposed to be its strongest, its biggest ally, the United States of America. A few days back, the US threatened to use military force to annex Greenland, a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, which is a fellow NATO member. So the question is, could this be the end, the collapse of NATO? Hello and welcome, you're watching the Karan Chronicles, and this is my take on the biggest existential threat the NATO has ever faced. Let's take a quick step back to understand what NATO really is. You see, founded in 1949, NATO was established to ensure that if one member was attacked, the others would respond. It was the backbone of the Cold War, a powerful counter to the Soviet Union's expansion. The Article 5, the Mutual Defense Clause, became the cornerstone. An attack on one is an attack on all. That is their tagline. In theory, if NATO's European allies face an attack, the US military is supposed to have the back. But now, what is happening? Things are changing. Fast forward to today and you see what's happening. The US, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, has openly threatened to use military force against Denmark to take control of Greenland. Just imagine that for a second. The US, a founding NATO member, suggesting military action against a NATO ally. This isn't just some small diplomatic hiccup. This undermines NATO's very foundation. The Prime Minister of Denmark wasn't having it. She warned. What did she say? She warned that an American attack on Greenland would be quote-unquote end of everything. Not just the NATO alliance, but the entire post-World War II security system. But you might be thinking, what's the whole point of this? Why does it matter? Because NATO, a military alliance, was created to avoid exactly what we are seeing now. What we are seeing, a member nation threatening military force against another member nation. NATO members don't attack each other. That's the whole point of the story. And if the US starts breaking that law, the alliance is fundamentally dead, it's fundamentally broken. Then to make matters worse, Trump scoffed at NATO just days after the Greenland comments. What did he say? Let's see. In a Truth Social post, he doubted NATO's loyalty to the United States. Even after NATO evoked Article 5 in 2001 after the 9/11 attacks, remember that. If NATO was there for the US in its darkest hour, why is Trump now questioning whether NATO would be there if America needed them? And here lies the real issue. Article 5, the one thing that's always held NATO together. It's a mutual defense pact. A promise that one attack on any NATO member will be treated as an attack on all. I'm repeating it again. But in recent years, Trump has publicly questioned whether he would follow through on Article 5 if one of the NATO's European allies were attacked. When Trump was asked about NATO's Mutual Defense Clause, do you know what he simply said? Quote unquote, it depends on your definition. And recently, he's been hinting that the US might not come to the aid of European NATO members if they were attacked. So there are two existential threats to NATO right now. The first is the US military threat to Greenland. If Trump or anyone else in the US government follows through, NATO's very founding principle will be shattered. It will be gone. The second threat is Trump's attitude towards Article 5. If NATO can no longer count on the US to defend European allies, the entire military framework of NATO is in jeopardy. Europe is logistically dependent on the US for military support, and without it, NATO might become just a shell of its former self. So what happens now? Well, the European NATO members are scrambling in their response. The Denmark, France, Germany, and all are in emergency talks to figure out how to deal with this growing Greenland threat and how to secure NATO in the future without full US backing. But the reality is, NATO's future largely depends on the US. Will America continue to lead NATO, or will the alliance collapse under the pressure of internal division and an unpredictable America? The US Greenland debacle and Trump's recent comment shows how fragile NATO's unity is in today's world. What has once a beacon of collective defense is now being tested like it was never before. If NATO is going to survive this crisis, it will need to reaffirm to its core value, the value of mutual defense, the value of trust and commitment to peace. If not, we could be witnessing the end of an era. And dear viewers, I have always seen geopolitics and world affairs through the lens of what can I learn from it to make my life better? What learnings can we take from it? And the biggest learning from this whole NATO existential crisis, from this NATO situation, is that, well, be self-dependent, be self-reliant. If you depend on somebody, if every time you need someone to bail you out of a situation, to bail you out of a crisis, then also be ready for a situation where you will be standing in cold and nobody will come to rescue you. Because in this world, this is how the situation works. Be it be a person, be it be an organization, or be it be a country, everyone thinks about their interests first and later about the interests of others. You are secondary for them. So take charge of your situation so you don't have to bend to somebody for bailing you out of a situation.